The day my life fell apart began like any other. The first light of dawn painted the quiet streets as I laced up my running shoes. Morning jogs were my sanctuary, a time to embrace the silence and let my thoughts drift. An hour later, I returned home, my heart steady and my mind clear. Through the soft glow of our bedroom window, I saw Lily, my wife of nearly 10 years, still asleep. Her peaceful face stirred a quiet joy within me. I tiptoed past her, collected my work clothes, and stepped into the bathroom to shower. Our mornings together had always been a comforting ritual. After my shower, I brewed fresh coffee and prepared breakfast. Moments later, Lily joined me, her warm smile as familiar as the scent of coffee that filled the air. She kissed my cheek lightly and poured herself a cup. "Good morning," she said, her voice still soft with sleep. We talked over breakfast about the day ahead. Lily's work as a pharmaceutical sales rep often kept her busy with late events and frequent trips. Meanwhile, I had a full day of data analysis at the tech firm downtown. It was the rhythm of our life, a steady cadence that I had grown to cherish. As I left for work, Lily called out from the doorway, "Love you." "You too," I replied with a smile, my heart warmed by the simple exchange. The workday began without incident, the hum of office life a familiar background. Around noon, I stepped into the break room for a quick sandwich and scrolled through my phone. That's when a notification caught my eye. Years ago, I had installed a tracking app on Lily's phone. It was a quiet safeguard, not born from mistrust but from the realities of her travel-heavy job. The app flagged any contact from unsaved numbers. That day, a new alert waited for me. I hesitated before opening it, a strange unease pooling in my stomach. When I tapped the notification, the screen filled with a thread of messages. As I read, my hands began to shake. The texts were explicit. Each line revealed a secret world I had never imagined. "Last night was incredible," the stranger wrote. Lily's response, flirty and shameless, made my chest tighten. In that moment, the life I thought I knew began to crumble. Lily, my steadfast wife, was betraying me. Her words with this stranger were laced with intimacy and desire. I felt the blood drain from my face. How could this happen? Was this just meaningless flirtation, or had it gone further? How long had she been lying to me? My mind raced with questions. Yet, amid the rage and disbelief, I knew I couldn't confront her, not yet. I needed more. Proof. Clarity. The day that began with peace and routine ended with chaos spiraling through my thoughts. My entire world, once so steady, now felt like it was slipping through my fingers. The hours after discovering Lily's texts were a blur. I sat at my desk, barely able to focus as waves of anger, sadness, and disbelief rolled over me. How could she do this? For nearly 10 years, I thought we had built something unshakable, a marriage rooted in trust, love, and loyalty. Now, all of it felt like a cruel facade. By the time I drove home that evening, I had decided not to confront her immediately. I wanted answers, but not hastily delivered excuses or tears. I needed the truth, the full picture, and proof of whatever she had been hiding. My plan was clear: gather evidence first, then act. When I stepped through the door, Lily greeted me with her usual warmth. She kissed me lightly, asked about my day, and moved about the house as though nothing had changed. I answered her questions with clipped replies, avoiding her gaze for too long. Inside, I was seething. Every word, every gesture of hers now felt calculated, a performance designed to cover her tracks. After dinner, I told her I had some work to finish and retreated to the office upstairs. But I wasn't working. Instead, I waited until I was certain she was asleep. Quietly, I crept downstairs, opened her laptop, and typed in her password, our anniversary. The moment the home screen loaded, I began searching. Her browser history had been wiped clean, but I found fragments, encrypted files and messages tucked into corners she must have thought were safe. Slowly, the pieces started to come together. Screenshots of explicit messages. Hotel reservations made on weekends when she'd claimed to be at conferences. A credit card receipt for a romantic dinner at a place we'd never visited together. And then, I stumbled upon a file labeled "Just Us." My hands shook as I clicked on it. The video that played shattered whatever hope I had left. Lily appeared on the screen, her face glowing with passion as she lay entangled with another man. The man's face wasn't visible, but his voice and tattoos were clear. Their intimacy was undeniable. This wasn't a fleeting mistake, it was a fully formed betrayal, recorded and preserved as though it were something to be proud of. I slammed the laptop shut, bile rising in my throat. I staggered back, my world spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my wife and our life together was a lie. She had brought this man into her life, and by extension, mine, with no regard for the devastation it would cause. The next morning, I couldn't look at her. I pretended to have a work emergency and left the house early. My mind was racing. Who was this man? How long had this been happening? I decided I needed help. I called my brother Caleb. If there was anyone who could offer advice, it was him. Years ago, his wife had cheated on him, and though their marriage had survived, Caleb understood the rage and pain I was feeling. When I told him what I'd found, his voice grew sharp with anger. He suggested hiring a private investigator to uncover everything. If I was going to confront Lily, he said, I needed all the evidence first. The investigator moved quickly, and within days, I had a complete timeline of Lily's affair. The man in the videos was Derek, a co-worker of hers. I had met him at several corporate events, a friendly, charming guy with a wife and young children. The audacity of it was almost unbearable. Derek had smiled in my face while betraying me behind my back. The evidence was damning. Text messages, photos of them at hotels and restaurants, even additional videos they had recorded together. They had been carrying on this affair for nearly 2 years, meeting whenever they traveled for work and even sneaking around locally when I was busy at the office. Armed with this proof, I decided it was time to confront them both. Confronting the reality of betrayal was one thing. Acting on it was another. My emotions roiled, rage, humiliation, and heartbreak, but I channeled them into cold determination. Derek, the man who had invaded my marriage, would face the consequences first. I arranged a meeting with him under the pretense of discussing work. The setting was deliberate, a quiet, impersonal sports bar where I could control the narrative without distractions. When he arrived, his demeanor was casual, unaware of what awaited him. I placed a manila envelope on the table, filled with the evidence I had painstakingly collected: photos, receipts, text transcripts. As he flipped through the damning contents, his face blanched. He didn't need me to explain. He understood what it all meant. In that moment, he was reduced from the confident charmer I once considered an acquaintance to a man stripped bare by his own actions. I outlined his future with precision. There would be no confrontation, no raised voices, only consequences. He left the bar a shell of himself, his shoulders hunched under the weight of what I'd done. Returning home, I prepared to face Lily. If Derek's downfall was a necessary act of justice, confronting her felt like plunging into a storm. I laid out the evidence, piece by piece, in front of her. Each fragment of proof, the messages, the receipts, the explicit videos, told a story of deceit that had unraveled our life together. Her face was a canvas of shock and despair, the mask of composure she'd worn for so long finally crumbling. She didn't deny it. She couldn't. Her emotions erupted, tears, apologies, desperate pleas for forgiveness, but her words were hollow against the reality of what I had uncovered. I didn't feel triumph. Only loss. The person I thought I knew, the life we had built together, had been irrevocably tainted. I told her I wanted the marriage to end. I filed for divorce, pushed to sell the house, and sought custody of the children. The bond between us, once so sacred, now felt like a chain I was eager to break. Lily moved out within days. Watching her pack her things was a surreal experience. Each box she carried was a reminder of the years we'd spent together, now reduced to fragments of a life I no longer wanted to remember. Derek's life crumbled alongside hers. The investigator's final report confirmed that his wife had discovered the affair and filed for divorce. His career, too, was effectively over. The satisfaction I felt was fleeting, dulled by the weight of my own losses. In the quiet aftermath, I found myself grappling with the echoes of what had happened. The anger that had driven me was now a hollow ache. Nights were the hardest. Alone in the empty house, I would replay memories of Lily, her smile, the way she would hum while cooking, the life we had shared. But those memories, once comforting, now felt like barbed wire, cutting deeper every time they surfaced. The videos and evidence haunted me. They were proof of what she had done, but also reminders of what I had lost. I kept them locked away, knowing they were no longer tools of revenge but symbols of pain I had to release. Though I had dismantled the facade of my marriage and enacted justice, the cost was immense. The life I had spent nearly a decade building was gone, replaced by an uncertain future. In the months following the end of my marriage, life felt like a series of fragmented moments, some filled with grief, others with determination. The house, once a home, became a place of transition. I sold it quickly, unwilling to stay surrounded by memories that felt hollow and cruel. Moving into a smaller space with the kids brought its own challenges, but it also gave us a fresh start. The children became my guiding light. Their laughter and innocence reminded me that not everything in my world had been tainted. I poured myself into creating a stable, joyful environment for them. Weekends became sacred, filled with activities that gave them a sense of normalcy and gave me a sense of purpose. But at night, when the house was quiet, the wounds reopened. Grief came in waves, pulling me into a dark undertow. Memories of Lily, of the life we had shared, surfaced unbidden. They were bittersweet, reminders of what I had once believed was real. Her betrayal had stolen more than trust, it had taken the version of myself that loved freely, without fear or reservation. With time, the anger began to fade, replaced by a cautious sense of acceptance. I couldn't change the past. I couldn't undo the choices Lily had made or the fallout that followed. All I could do was move forward, even if it was slower and harder than I wanted. I focused on rebuilding. My work became an outlet, and I found myself thriving in ways I hadn't before. Without the constant distraction of a broken marriage, I could pour my energy into advancing my career. I leaned on family and friends, rediscovering connections I had neglected over the years. Eventually, I started to feel lighter. The kids adjusted to their new routine, and their resilience inspired me. I began to envision a future not defined by betrayal but by possibilities. I even allowed myself to consider dating again, tentatively, carefully. While the scars of my marriage lingered, I refused to let them define the rest of my life. 1 year after discovering Lily's affair, I felt a strange sense of calm. The milestone marked not only the end of that chapter but also the beginning of something new. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again, unburdened by deceit. And as I stood at the edge of this new horizon, I promised myself one thing: I would not let the pain of the past dictate the happiness of my future. If you found this story compelling, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more narratives that explore life's challenges and triumphs. Let's navigate these complex emotions together.